Welcome back to another We Wonder. My name is Chris Pfluger, and as you know, I am the Chief Development Officer here at We Insure. And we wonder about a lot of things as we go through. I'm a very curious person. And so this today is for all of my real estate friends out there. As you know, I've worked in the real estate industry for a very long time, and I still consider We Insure as a very strong partner to any real estate office out there. And so with that, I'm always curious about a real estate office's profitability. Based on my experience, I know how it works and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. So I'm a strong proponent, as everyone who's ever talked to me knows, about building up a very, very strong base of agents from a recruiting perspective, and then adding ancillary businesses like mortgage, title, and of course, We Insure for insurance. So with that in mind, you still have to figure out how to do the recruiting to get that base of agents out there. And if you're doing it the old school way, which is just, I know a guy in town, or this person said they did this many transactions, you are way, way behind. So today we have a guest with us who's playing a whole different game, right? We call it real estate Moneyball. That's just our term. That's not what he calls the product. But in general, is really, if you've seen the movie, it is really a whole different level. What if you had all those metrics? What if you had everything you needed to know and you had projections and you could actually learn how to grow your office and your business the way you want it to be? That would be very special. So as we head into recruiting season at the end of the year and at the beginning of next year, I just want to bring on this guest because I think it really was valuable information, and I think you're going to find it the most entertaining and enlightening conversation we've had in a very long time. So let me introduce our guest, and I'm going to throw this up here so we have it on the bottom. Rob Keefe. How are you, Rob?
Great. Thanks for bringing me on the show, Chris.
Absolutely. So you are the founder and president of Relitix.
Yep.
All right. So where are you based?
We're based out of southeastern Wisconsin.
Okay. And you have been doing this. Tell us a little bit about Relitix, kind of the genesis of it, your ideas around it, and then we'll get into some details.
Sure. Maybe a little background would be helpful so you sort of know where I'm coming from on it. I started life as a naval officer, went to the Naval Academy. The Navy sent me to get a master's degree from MIT. So I started with a very strong sort of technical background. And then like most people that end up in real estate, I kind of came in by accident almost. We've a third generation family real estate business here in Wisconsin. And after 10 years in the Navy, decided to come back and join the business, and eventually ran our business, was president of our state association for a year, and NAR committee member, got very involved in real estate, really fell in love with the industry, left the business to run a relocation management company in 2011 and did that for 5 years. So really approached this whole issue of recruiting and agent skill sets and so on from the sort of the dual perspective of someone who's run a real estate brokerage and managed title and mortgage and so on, along with the very technical and sort of numbers side that comes along with the relocation business. As you know, in a relocation company, we secure a lot of our profit by picking the right agent to list a transferee's house. And, our company at WHR Group had developed a 45 or 50,000 agent database around the country to know exactly who, maybe not the best agent, but one of the best agents would be to list your house in really any major city. And looking at this and, with the technical background and being a Moneyball fan, I thought, if we can get the MLS data set, we can do this anywhere. And that was really the origin of our company. It's all about using MLS data to not just to sort of regurgitate it in the form of a better stats package or something like that. It's really to combine that with the power of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and all the new technology that's out there, data visualization tools, to leverage that scarcest of resources in real estate, office management. If you have an hour of office management time, who should you be talking to? If you have an hour of time on the phone recruiting, who are those best recruits? How do you most specifically target the people that you're looking for to build the company you're looking to build?
And that's a great point. So we have a lot of those discussions on the recruiting side if you're in real estate. And you may not know this, but my role in a past company was I was head of recruiting and retention for the U.S. And so I'm very interested in understanding how this works, because this type of tools having in your hand would have been very valuable a few years ago for me. But I can tell you that a lot of, you know, every single manager, every single, broker owner out there is having the same conversation literally daily. How do we get the right agents? How do we add more agents? Because I believe you know this for sure, and you actually have the metrics to prove it, that if you're not growing, you're dying, right? At some point, there's attrition in your office. And, you gave me a stat the other day. What was that stat?
This is when we're talking about agents that attrit out of offices or sort of roll the turnover.
Correct.
Yeah. So one of the ways we talk to our clients about their agent sort of pool is by looking at it almost as a balance sheet. We look at who produced volume for that company last year and who's producing this year. And what we see when we look at big companies around the country, you can almost bank on 15 to 20% of your volume being gone next year in one way, shape, or form. We'll call it maybe 12% to getting recruited by the competition. It's just a fact of life. And larger companies tend to provide training grounds for smaller companies. That's a very typical career path in real estate. And then you'll have 5 to 10% of your volume just go away as people retire or leave the business or move out of the area. So when you say grow or die, I mean, you got to replace that 20% or you're guaranteed to shrink. And you can replace the 20% by growing the production of your existing people that stick with you, by recruiting new people in, both either from the competition or recruiting them in fresh from another industry.
Excellent. So that is exactly what I meant. If you're out there, and I know the margins in real estate running an office are fairly slim. So if you're losing 15 to 20% of your overall production, while the margin is still there, you're actually, you're retrenching each year unless you're out there actively recruiting. So tell us a little bit about, I want to ask this question here. You mentioned, we talked about the 80-20 rule yesterday a little bit, as we were prepping, having this conversation, and everybody understands what the 80-20 rule is. However, does it really apply in real estate?
Well, when you get your license in real estate, in addition to learning about all license law and everything, somebody tells you this 80-20 rule. I mean, it's almost like gospel in there. So one of the things we do, just to sort of keep our numbers fresh and to look for other things that we can do with stats, is we do these analysis and we post them on our website. They're on our updates section. So as far as the 80-20 rule, I wanted to validate that. And it turns out it's close. It's actually more 75-25, which is to say 25% of the agents will produce 75% of the business. And that applies in dollars and in transaction sides as well. It's very, very close in both. If you want to know who produces 80% of the results, it's 30% of the agents, or something very close to that. Wow. So what's the implication? And I mean, there's some obvious implications in management, but in terms of generating ancillary revenue, I'm talking about obviously mortgage and title, but specifically insurance for the purposes of this conversation. You're looking at a 100-agent office. You think it's a huge hill to climb to get your capture rate up to where you need to be to make the kind of money that you want to make with your ancillary services. You really don't have to sell to all 100 agents. You just need 25 of them to come on board, and you know which 25 they are. So in some ways this works for toward our benefit. It's a smaller pool of agents to manage and to bring along with you.
So that's the interesting point we have here. That's what I wanted you to get to, because if you're talking about 25% of your office, or 25 of the 100, and you're not only managing that for your capture rate on your ancillaries, but you're also noticing that if you have your 25 is not as strong as it needs to be, you can actually focus on recruiting better agents down the road to replace the ones you have that are maybe leading to attrition or something else happens. And so as you're looking at that, there's a very methodical way to go approach this. So people usually say, I've got a great office of top producers. So tell me about that. We talked about that briefly. What is a top producer and how many are there?
Well, this obviously varies by market. A top producer in Los Angeles is very different than one in rural Wisconsin. But just looking at sort of the big picture and taking agents as a whole across the country, let's first start by, I can share a pretty shocking stat, at least it was shocking when I looked at it. If you look at all the agents who did at least one transaction last year, almost half of them will do less than $1 million this year. So to say that there are a lot of low producers out there doesn't exactly do justice to it. Low producers are the norm in real estate. I mean, the median agent is a low producer. It'd be another way of putting that.
Right.
So when you start talking about top producers, 10 million plus, whether that's a top producer in your market, would depend on where you're selling. Boston would be different, but that's something like 6% of the agents in the U.S. are
Wow.
10 million plus. And if you want to talk about 20 million plus, it's 1.5%. So it's almost an exponential curve when you plot out production and numbers. That tail gets pretty skinny. So, obviously they do a vastly disproportionate amount of the business given the number of very, very low producers in real estate. But they're unusual. So there aren't a lot of offices that I would say are full of top producers. That would be a very unusual collection of people. I know there are folks out there, and there are good reasons not. And this goes more to sort of real estate common sense, but there are a lot of reasons not to have an office of top producers, to have a balance. It goes to the attrition number that we talked about, but it also goes to those offices with progressive commission split. Your company dollar is just going to get destroyed if you have an office of top producers and they're capped, or even if they're on a transactional basis, they likely hit a cap pretty early on as well. So recruiting with intentionality, deciding what kind of agent pool is ideal to fulfill your company's strategic and financial goals is an important part of the strategic planning process. How do you want the distribution of production in that office to look? You don't want it. You most likely don't want it all top producers. So what's the balance? And then knowing where you want to go, how do you target agents out there in the wild that are going to make that happen and set reasonable retention goals to ensure that you keep the agents that you want?
Listen, this is such a foreign concept in real estate. I can't even begin to tell you, because if you ask people, everybody who got into a management role, typically as an owner, it was almost an accident. It was almost by happenstance. Like a lot of the acquisitions or purchases that become early on, especially as you're growing your offices and not acquiring them, is more ego driven. I'd like to have my name on the door. I think I can do it better than my manager. I don't want to pay the fee, so I'm going to be the guy that owns it. And then you realize you really just took on way more complicated a situation than you had if you were just a producing agent. So when you think about it like that, and someone is intentional, and that word intentionally is a fantastic word here, because utilizing this information and those type of metrics and actually planning for that growth is very unusual. It's very unusual. It's like finding a top producer, let's say. It's unusual in the business in my experience. And as people kind of get comfortable over a period of time as owners, they realize I'm either in a very expensive hobby or I need to make this a business, right? So I use that line quite a bit because it's true. I'm doing the day-to-day and I never have a chance to work on the business because I'm working in the business. And so you reach that critical mass and you start thinking, okay, now I can step back and start looking at it. And then I want to get very intentional. So just like that in a broker owner, tell me a little bit from your experience about agent progression in their careers.
Yeah,
so someone just starts, when are you looking for that agent in your mind?
Well, I mean, this is something we've spent a lot of time looked at the numbers on that. And I believe just published an article with Real Trends that talks through this. what you're going to find is two sort of competing phenomena as far as agents as they progress through their career. Agents, when they start out in their first 7 years, the average agent will keep growing their business throughout that 7 years. I used to think they'd plateau around year 2 or 3. They kind of be whatever they're going to be at that point. But when we look at the real numbers, it doesn't work out that way. So we're talking about the average productivity per agent by sort of class year. They joined 3 years ago, they joined 4 years ago. That number keeps going up. The other phenomenon at play here is the exit from the business of newer agents. It's very high. So what you end up having is a large number of people leaving the business every year, and that number stays fairly consistent through year 12 as we look at it. So who leaves the business? Well, disproportionately people that can't make money. So what's happening is you're getting the selection bias. So it's a little bit of a survival of the fittest, and this is what's causing that average productivity number to go up. So when you're looking at agents that join the business, about half of them are going to make it to year 5, and I'm talking about make it like doing anything, doing 100,000 a year. By year 5, half of those people are doing something else. So when you're looking to figure out where that sweet spot is in recruiting, there's a lot of factors that come to play. You're talking about recruiting newer agents. You want to give them enough time in the business to determine if they're going to make it or not, because most of them don't. Let's say 80% will not achieve a $3 million run rate. But you don't want to wait so long that it becomes apparent to everybody that they're going to make it. You want to catch them when they're kind of low profile in the office. Otherwise, it's going to be a heavy lift if their manager is any good at all, because they've identified this person as one of the breakout folks that's going to be a professional agent, it's going to make money for the firm, and they're going to take very good care of them. So you want to catch them, you want to try to hit that balance. And in our experience, we want to give them at least 18 months because that begins to establish a track record. If you go too much beyond 2.5, 3 years, you're going to be into sort of a different realm of that. They're now sort of experienced agents, quote unquote. And then you just got to look at their track record up to that point. We developed a machine learning algorithm that takes a look at agents in their first 3 years, looks at what they've done so far, compares it to a huge training set, a 2 million agent training set of what agents have done historically, and rates the likelihood that agent's going to make it. That's what our clients use, among other things, to sort through this huge pile of newer agents. But newer agents are just a great recruiting opportunity. Everybody that does well in recruiting that we work with has some component of targeting these folks.
So it's definitely not, you don't want to just go after anyone. So you really, is there any one distinguishing, feature or variable or metric that you point to and say, man, that, 90% of the people who make it have this going for them?
I wish there was something that was that predictive, but what we look at are obviously, are they on track production wise? You don't expect someone that's been in 12 months to be doing $5 million at that point. But it'd be great if they were doing $1 million too. Where is that sort of on track number? And the other thing that our algorithm seems to weigh very heavily is listing generation. So if someone's just working buyer leads, or they've worked their friends, family, and everybody in their Facebook profile page, they've gotten all the easy sort of low-hanging fruit. Is that particularly indicative of someone who can build a sustainable source of business and work a circle of influence? Maybe not. But somebody that trusts an agent with a listing and they actually sell that listing, they're getting the basics. They're getting the blocking and tackling of real estate done, which, and this is more just opinion than data. For me, it's all about how well an agent manages a listing. Do they know how to position the listing in the market? Do they know how to qualify buyers? Do they know how to have conversations with sellers about price and set price appropriately? and set expectations. So we look very heavily at measuring listing skill level when we profile agent recruits for our clients.
I'll tell you what, that's valuable to know, because a lot of people do come in and become buyer's agents for a period of time, so they have someone else make it rain and they can figure out how to work with folks and then aim them at a property. But I think you're right. I think that is definitely one of the skill sets that you see as a successful agent. Of course, you can. I've had this experience myself where one of my offices said, "Hey, Chris, can you talk to this, this agent? They did $3 million last year, and they came over here and they've got nothing for like 6 months." One conversation for 5 minutes realized that his cousin sold a $3 million house. So absolutely no experience with real estate at all. So you wouldn't expect to see any transactions. So you do have to dive into these things and ask the right questions. But that is great information. So let's get down to it as we get toward the end here. What areas are you currently working in? Because I know it's not completely all 50 states, every single market. So what areas are you working with now? And part B was, who is a good client for you?
So we work in 21 different markets around the country. We've got that sort of broken out on the website, but primarily Mid-Atlantic, Carolinas through New England. We're in the Upper Midwest and Arizona, Utah. But more complete answer would be that we'll go where our clients ask us to. We can onboard new MLSs fairly quickly. So what's an ideal client for us? It's somebody that understands the numbers and has a very clear idea of what they're trying to accomplish in terms of their agent pool, and is comfortable using metrics to achieve those numbers. Our clients range in size from 300 million in sales to 5 or 6 billion in sales. So we have a lot of larger companies, with large agent pools and big recruiting loads to manage every year. But for the right smaller company, we can be invaluable as well.
Well, I have to say this has been very educational. When I use the term Moneyball, I have to say I would imagine that is very, very accurate. Of course, people can find out more information about Relitix right there on your website. And I have to say it's been a pleasure meeting you and understanding more about the data sciences and how it's applicable to recruiting. So, Rob, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on, Chris. It's great to be here.
Thank you.